Tell me all about you in a short version, of course.
Oh, short version.
Yeah.
I'm Brian Stelfreeze. I'm a comic book artist, illustrator. I've done probably over 500 covers for Marvel and DC Comics, and I was involved in the relaunching of the Black Panther comic book, which then led to the movies.
Okay, so how did you start your art career?
Probably just like every other kid, just drawing on everything that I can get my hands on. I did a lot of drawing in math classes and English classes and things like that. So that's kind of how I got started. But once I started seeing comic books, that really kind of fascinated me. So that really made me start drawing superheroes and things like that. And for my actual career in comics, I actually started off as an editorial cartoonist for a newspaper when I was in high school. And I did that for a while, and that got me into doing more commercial illustrations. And I became a commercial illustrator for about 10 years. But then I remembered my love for comics. So I went back and started doing comic book work, and eventually got hired to do the Batman covers for DC Comics. So that got me started, and I'm kind of addicted to it from that point on.
So art is a lot of things, and it's comics and it's landscapes and whatever. Do you have any sideline? Do you do any other art than comics?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I do concept art. I also do some design work. But for me, it's, I think, to an outside viewer, art seems to be a lot of things, but I think art is just one thing, and that one thing is storytelling. And I think there's stories that you can tell with a portrait. There's stories that you can tell with a landscape. It's really about making people feel that they're there. And even when I'm doing portraiture or I'm doing comics, I want you to feel like you're Batman. You know, I want you to feel like you're a regal aristocrat. You know, I want you to feel like you're in that desert landscape. So that to me is the most important thing, is art. I think we have a tendency to think that it's a lot of things, but it's really one thing. It's storytelling. And the most awesome thing about that is when you look at a piece of art, you're removed from the environment. You're removed from, sort of all things, and you're there inside the artwork. And that's the thing that I love. That's what art does to me, and that's what I hope to do to other people.
That's a really great answer. Yeah, I was hoping for something, and I got this. This was awesome. When you grew up, what kind of influence did you have? What was your favorite artist, or did you have any favorite artists?
Yeah. When I grew up, a lot of the classic illustrators, what's really cool is my mom got me a set of storybooks. And in the storybooks, I didn't realize at the time, but they were all done by these classical illustrators. People like Norman Rockwell, J.C. Leyendecker, N.C. Wyeth. So it was all of these things that, even as an introduction to art and storytelling were one thing. I would look at these wonderful pictures, and then I would read these stories. Of course, there were stories about the Three Musketeers and Robin Hood and all those things, but the art really managed to put me there. So I'd always just look at the art and imagine them as moving pictures. Imagine these characters in the scenarios that these stories would describe. So yeah, that was a big influence on me, and it still remains being a big influence. One of the things that's fascinating, especially about traveling, coming to different countries, is I get to have a first-hand look at the artists of that country. A lot of the other comic book artists, I get to hang out with them and speak to them, and it's really interesting because the more and more artists I meet, the more and more, even though we don't speak the same language, we do speak the same language through art, and that's fascinating to me.
Awesome. So last and final question, I think. What's in the future for you and your art?
More of this. as much of this as I can do. Currently, I'm working on a few cover illustrations for both Marvel and DC, and in the future I'll continue to do that stuff. I'm doing creator-owned stuff for myself, and I continue to do concept work.
Thank you very much for talking to me. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
your stuff is speaking for itself, I think. It's really